I know you're not in the mood for jokes, Dan. I'm sorry.
Are we in the mood for jokes, Bucknutters? Is it Tuesday, December 10th at 9:40 a.m.? Can you hear me? If you cannot hear me, this is going to be a long day.
Beautiful the house there, Mark.
Yeah, this is my Florida house. This is my credenzas in the background.
Cam St. Prix, do not mess with me. It's not funny.
Heard it.
Todd, it's not funny. Jason, this isn't funny. Daryl Lee Mans, this isn't funny. Could you all possibly be on the same thing? Morning, everyone. Good gracious. All right. I have no idea what just happened. I'm serious. And I'll take the blame for a lot of things. I don't know if I can take the blame for this. This was not play calling. Okay, this was not coaching. This was technical difficulties. Jim, my name is Dan. Just what you guys want to know. And I need it now because I was sweating. Thank God I had on my Mando whole body deodorant because it's fantastic. And I have a great deal for you guys. Yeah, Scott, don't you dare. So you can check it out yourself. Mando, developed by a doctor, not an offensive coordinator, and gives you 72-hour odor control. And I needed it. If you've been using the same deodorant for several years like I was until I discovered Mando, it might be time for you to try something new and better. That's where Mando comes in. Mando Starter Pack is perfect for new customers or to secure some last-minute stocking stuffers. It comes with solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code Bucknuts at shopmando.com. 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 Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. Hallelujah. Praise whatever. This was one of those days. All right. I think I'm with Jason on that. Good Lord. I apologize for the rocky start there. I have no idea what was happening. We tried this 3 or 4 times. And had nothing to do with the Bengals. All right. Gentlemen, when you first heard Tennessee at the Shoe, 8 p.m., December 21st, your thoughts. Dean, first thing that went through your mind, was it David Sanders?
It was not David Sanders. It was first thing I thought of was kind of what not everybody, but a lot of people predicted it. Watching the show and all, I thought, I guess my real first thought was that the committee did a horrible job. But it still came out fairly predictable. How they came up with some of the things they came up with, I do not understand. But it's Ohio State and Tennessee. Now, after that, my thoughts were, knowing a little bit about Tennessee, one of their strengths, if not their number one strength, is their defensive line. So, Ohio State's number one strength is not their offensive line with all the injuries and all. So that creates a matchup that Ohio State is going to have to handle. Their defensive line against the Buckeyes' offensive line. And, you can have all the great skill position players in the world, but if you don't have time to throw it, if you don't have room to run it, it's probably not going to work. So they've got to figure out a way to neutralize and beat the Tennessee defensive line.
Mark, what do you make of the vibe that the fans will be non-receptive to the Buckeyes, which I don't get that, but that the loss of Michigan will sting to the point where they'll still be cranky and it's not going to be a great home field advantage. Your thoughts on that?
I think it's a cold weather game for a warm weather team coming up here, which is a factor. Some of those, warm weather teams don't like that very much. I am Aleva, the quarterback. Bill, do you remember him working out at the Ohio State camp?
No, yeah.
Wearing the white beater. Yeah, I mean, this day, as soon as I saw that match, I'm like, well, we finally get to see this day come to fruition. It was this kid that great? Is he a program-changing kid? I guess Tennessee's been quietly ranked high all year. You know, they've been top 10-ish, and you know they've had, but they haven't had that oomph to get over the top. And Ohio State is that oomph if they want to get over the top, I guess you want to say. But it's the kind of the matchup I think the fans were hoping for. You know, that they weren't scared of. That should be that first round matchup that could get you the next one. After that, you start seeing tougher matchups, I think. But yeah, I think Tennessee's a nice first round. I think the Buckeyes have a ton of frustration to take out. And, you know, I said when we played Indiana, the Indiana punter made a mistake, and then Caleb Downs returned a punt, and there were some clips that could have been called, and those were two plays that significantly changed the game and made us look better than we are. Same thing with Michigan. There are a few plays that made us look so much worse than we are. We're not that team at Michigan. We were caught in that vortex. I want to say you get caught in every now and then as a football team where balls aren't going your way, the streams are crossed. But I don't think you're going to see that same team twice in 1 year. I think that's a 1 week, down tick. And as awful as it was, I'm one of the people who thinks that Ohio State had a great chance to win the national championship a couple weeks ago before the Michigan game. And I think that's increased. I think there's more, to prove behind them, and more people. Dan's talked about their NFL draft stocks. Some of them are talking about jobs. Every one of them has money on the line with NIL right now. Every one of them's thinking about, what am I going to make next year, either back as a Buckeye or so. Tennessee, I guess, wasn't the scariest team on the board. And, Bill said it, what were those playoff people thinking with a couple of the way they but I guess that's the way this is created, and you have to see things in a certain way, but we're here.
Yeah, it's interesting. I gave this a decent amount of thought, and I do definitely understand the Michigan hangover. And there are people, and I'm not going to argue with them, considering the fact we work here at Bucknuts, that feel a loss to Michigan invalidates the entire season, regardless of how you fare in the other games. I get that. And if you're one of those people, you're bumming. If you can get over it, if they beat Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, and Georgia in a row and win the national championship, that will be incredible. That will be earned. Yes, it will be a new vibe. I think there was a quote in the boarding house from a guy yesterday who said it's like an NFL thing. The Ravens could lose twice to the Steelers this year, win the Super Bowl, be very happy. So maybe it's like that. But we're going to show up. We'll have plenty to get into. That game will get broken down tremendously. If you think about it, I think there's 9 days after the first game. So this is uncharted waters, man. You're going to get to know these players much differently than we have in the past. Just like in the NCAA tournament, where a guy like Steph Curry can come in and be kind of an unknown, and then 3 weekends later, he's a household name. That's going to happen with some dudes now. So who will it be? We don't know. It could be very well be a Buckeye or multiple Buckeyes, etc. So we will monitor that, and we'll have great preview stuff for you. We'll get some Tennessee guys on here, and we'll break it all down. The good thing about having this much time off is the guys who do take the field for you will probably be as healthy as they've been in some time. So you usually get a pretty fair representation of your squad with this. All right, Bill, let's shift to the transfer portal. You have kindly taken on that responsibility for us here as kind of the lead guy for us on transfer portal content. It does seem like, this is a very, talk about uncharted waters. We did the NIL, we did the signing day, and now we do the transfer portal right as everything's still going on, as they're supposedly preparing for a game against Tennessee. So it's a very convoluted situation. I think people are very interested in the transfer portal. I'm not sure who we're going to lose from an impact situation. Now, the bottom line is this. There are no teams that don't lose transfers. So you're going to lose some people. This isn't like it used to be. So that's just going to happen. Some of the guys we've lost so far, you guys know, or Devin Brown's even said he's leaving. I don't think we've lost anyone that was primarily in the plans going forward. However, they have gone after some guys, I think, that they're very interested in Bill. And let's start with the offensive linemen, because that really does seem like their focus. You can talk about the guys they're going after. What I'd like you to really do, though, is talk about what position Ohio State wants these guys for, because I think people see tackle and don't realize that a lot of times tackle could mean guard if you go up a level.
Yeah, the number one guy there to talk about is exactly like you're saying. Josh Thompson, the offensive lineman at Northwestern. Now, he is a guy that absolutely Ohio State would love to add him to the program. But, immediately a lot of people thought, well, that could be the tackle, because he played, I believe, the last 11 games of this season at tackle. He's played left guard at Northwestern. He's played right guard at Northwestern, and he's played right tackle. And most notably, right tackle this season for the most part. But that's not really – I think if you start talking a lot of tackle with Josh Thompson, you may be hurting yourself, because he's an NFL guy. He's absolutely going to be an NFL guy. But not necessarily, probably not at tackle. His size and all, and his skill set, the NFL likes him as a guard, first and foremost. So I think you're going to perhaps hurt yourself if you are necessarily talking tackle with him as far as getting him. In Ohio State, they're not dumb. Certainly, they're very smart when it comes to recruiting. So he is coming in for an official visit this Friday. He is at Michigan State today. He is at Auburn, supposed to be at Auburn tomorrow. He had Ohio State on Friday. And you don't turn a guy down like that with his skill set and ability because you want him to play a certain position. If you don't have, if he comes into Ohio State, he's the best guard on the roster. So why shouldn't he play there? So that's what I expect them to pitch to him.
So if you think about it right now, looking at next year, you got Austin Sierreville, Tegra Chabola, Carson Hinsman has played some guard. You'll lose Donovan Jackson, the left guard, who was flipped out to left tackle. So it does feel like Thompson, almost like the Rutgers Jonah Jackson guy we got a few years ago, plug and play at guard, who's still playing in the league, I believe. So that's very interesting. Are there other guys that we need to be focused on? And do you feel like, was I right, that offensive line seems to be top of the board?
Yeah, Luke Beklenko from Stanford. Ohio State has reached out to him. As of yesterday, they had not actually spoken with him, but yesterday was the opening day that they could officially talk to some of these guys. If you're not a grad transfer, and a lot of these guys are not grad transfers, you couldn't directly talk to them until yesterday. You could contact their agents and all that, but you could not directly contact them. So Beklenko's people have heard from Ohio State, I was told, but Beklenko had not specifically spoken with him. He is a California kid that ended up at Stanford. Gunnar Hansen was on the radar screen, but as of yesterday, they had not actually spoken to him, as far as I was told. Jordan White is a center at Liberty. And I really think when you look at things, it would be great for Ohio State to get a center like they brought in Seth McLaughlin, because I think Hinsman played really well at guard. But him at center, I don't know that. I think for Hinsman, his more natural position is guard.
Yeah. McLaughlin also provided a little bit of a veteran presence at center. And that's, with the amount that's asked of the center, calling plays out and stuff like that, defensive alignments, et cetera.
And going back a little bit, remember Josh Myers? One of the first things that Ryan Day did when he took over was, hey, Josh Myers, he's our center. No question. He's going to be our center, because he needed a guy there to make the calls, get the work done at center and all. And he put Josh Myers, and Josh did a good job then, in my opinion.
Sure did. I think he's still with the Packers. I'd have to look that up, but I know he's battled some injuries, but a very, very good player. All right, I got to tell you about our second sponsor today, and that is Prize Picks. And I'm going to show you that you could have made some money with us because Dave did this yesterday because I love daily fantasy. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action, and they have made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 200 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. So here's what Dave said yesterday. Joe Burrow for more than 275 yards passing and Chase Brown for more than 1 touchdown. He also liked CeeDee Lamb for more than 67 receiving yards and Mike Gesicki for more than 25 receiving yards. It was a hard game to watch, and it ended in Cowboys fashion. For those of you who thought Dave and I were battling it out, we were battling it out for draft position. We're both draft nerds and wanted to lose. And Dave sent me something late in the game when the Cowboys took a 4th quarter lead. And I said, Dave, the Cowboys will do what it takes to lose this game. It's a lifestyle. And I don't know if anybody saw how they lost it. They had the game won, blocked the punt, Peter, or not, and you lose. So there you go. We moved up in the draft. Now number 12. Latest draft has us taking the safety out of Georgia. A little high for a safety, but I digress. Download the app today and use code Bucknuts. Mark, don't interrupt them. Download the app today and use code Bucknuts to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Think about that. You get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. I'm sorry, Mark, go ahead.
I was going to say that the Cowboy that touched the ball.
Say again?
Yeah, he was just called up for that game. So it was like his first NFL game, and then the ball hits him, or he tries to field it. So he's got a heck of a memory for his first NFL call-up. So
yeah,
thought that was not sucked a little more than normal.
That was not the strongest performance that they've ever had. Let's talk portal, Bill. Are you hearing anything about? I think everybody assumes there's going to be a major exodus at quarterback. Devin Brown has already said he's going to go. I think people, and I would agree with them, that Julian Sayin is more likely the next man up. Then you've got Aaron Nolan, Lincoln Keenholz. I probably forgot somebody in there, did I?
Tavian St. Clair.
Okay, well,
Come in, yeah.
We will not discuss.
He'll be on the roster in less than a month. We will not
discuss Tavian before it's time. But your thoughts on what is going to go on here, Bill? Do you expect mass exodus? There's even rumors of Ohio State looking at quarterbacks. They went in the portal last year and got a veteran. I would say Will Howard was a bridge guy. Your thoughts on what's going forward at the quarterback spot?
Yeah, you mentioned Tavian, and Mark mentioned Tavian. He will be January 4th is when he will be moving in, as well as almost the entire 2025 class moves in January 4th. They start classes January 6th. So he will be on the roster. He'll be part of the program starting in early January. Now, as far as the guys there, I do think Julian Sayin is kind of the guy that it's going to be a competition. Absolutely, it will be a competition. No one will be anointed. No one will be given the job. It'll be competition. I think Julian Sayin is the most likely guy to take over. But, again, we'll see. As far as who's leaving, we know, as you mentioned, Dan, Devin Brown is leaving. I would be almost a little surprised if at least one of 2 guys leave, Keenholz and Nolan. I think, again, if both of those guys are back, I will be a little bit surprised, I guess, as things stand right now. But, again, we'll see. Some guys want to stay and compete. Who would have thought at any point almost very early in the process last year that Ohio State would have 5 scholarship quarterbacks that went through the season on the roster. That almost never happens anywhere anymore, but it happened.
Mark, your thoughts? You've seen these guys play as prospects. You've seen them play a little bit. You know Julian Sand and you know Tavian St. Clair. What do you think is going to happen?
Julian has the most polished right now and should have the lead. I mean, he has the advantage in the offense. Tavian St. Clair is simply just more talented from a physical stature point, from the things he brings to the table. Might be a little faster, bigger arm, might be able to reach a few more places, but Saint's timing, poise, stuff like that comes into factor. It's two different type of players battling. So the coaches may have a tough decision. And there's always that decision. Do we go with the younger guy because it gives him time to, develop, and, when he's a finished product, he'll be better than the other one, so it should be an interesting spring. I'm looking forward to it. I'm out on the road at recruiting nights, and what coaches have been telling me, and Ohio State also, they got to recruit their own roster. And we talked about this last time. There's a lot of that going on right now. More players than ever are hiring official agents. They're not just, doing this haphazardly, when NIL started, just, hey, I'm getting some money, I'm getting a car deal. The agents that I have talked to are stepping in, and they are almost, now that the money's here, they're here. And they're following the money, and they're going to turn this into a S show before it's all said and done. But they're going to try to get better deals for these players. And I think that, it's not fair that these guys are playing in, their playoffs, and then a couple hours a day, hey, we got to sit down and talk money about players. We got agents that are calling our personnel department. We got players, and some of these players that are popping into the portal before the portal's officially open for them. It's a game of musical chairs, and there's only so, let's say for, Devin Brown, there's only so many quarterback jobs that are open across the country. Every other portal quarterback is trying to get to those jobs before the next one does. So if a lot of those jobs are taken and you can't get to the portal, or people don't know you're in the portal, or you have intentions to be in the portal, you're missing out on a job, and that job is money. So, yeah, this is going to be a real interesting couple of weeks. I think there are a lot more people that are going to jump into the portal after the season's officially over in that 5-day window, I believe. And don't be surprised. It's going to be a number probably, close to 10 by the time it's all said and done. There's a lot of great players that just want to go play other places. So I think that's the lay of the land here as we go through the playoffs.
Just to echo that, Devin Brown announced he was transferring but staying with the team through the playoff, I think probably to solve that issue that you described, that he wants to make sure that there's a chair for him that doesn't get too musical. And he's got a place to go there. So that makes a lot of sense. I think the most interesting time is going to be the day after, or, the first round of the playoffs. And then you're going to get guys who hung out. And here's the real question I have. Are guys going to, for example, if you're and you can insert any name you want here, if you're a great freshman or sophomore, are you going to go to your team and say, look, I'm going into the portal. I'm going to the highest bidder. If you want me back, you got to prove it in front of everybody. My guess is if that option is there, people are going to take advantage of it because it's money, and they do that. I don't know who will do it. I don't know whether or not I think it's even a bad idea. Could I blame someone for doing that? I'm not sure. I don't think so. It's kind of like, you create this system. I'm no teacher. I'm not raising hand. If you create this system, just like they created the playoff system, it gets screwy. Go ahead, Mark.
I think the problem that Ohio State's going to have every year, and this is regardless of the player's name, is that when you get to the 11th best player on the Ohio State roster, or even 11 through 20, can Ohio State pay them like the top 10? No. So they're going to get paid like players 11 through 20. Players 11 through 20 at Ohio State are number one players for a lot of other teams. And a lot of other teams can treat them and pay them like a number one player. Now, I don't think 11 through 20 leave Ohio State, but I think 20 through 30 is where other teams will start bidding, and Ohio State in the future every year is going to have trouble keeping these bottom end stars, like you just said, these sophomores that are the heir apparents in a year or two and will be great players for Ohio State, but are looking for a number one player payday sooner than later. And I think all teams like Ohio State are going to have that inherent problem where Ohio State's going to pay their top 10 players and take care of them. And then that number is going to gradually dwindle to where that's where other teams will start cutting in. So I think that's the new game as we go forward.
That's interesting. So you're saying almost guys who, 11 to 20 in Ohio State's roster, you're a starter.
Yep.
And you're talking top 22. So you're saying that's going to be interesting. Is someone going to say, hey, I'm the third corner here, the slot corner? I'm trying to think of a position like that.
Yeah.
Or like the third receiver and say, look, I could be the number one guy somewhere else and get paid that much more. That's interesting. I think that almost becomes a case-by-case basis. Like, for example, I can make a very strong argument that if you're a wide receiver at Ohio State, financially, your best move is not to leave. I don't care. I don't think any other program will pay you enough money to offset what the NFL preparation does for you. Just look at what Ohio State, Jackson Smith and Jigba everyone has hit pretty much. So your draft position and your long-term financial viability, I think, is still good. But go ahead.
11 to 20, I think, is like you're saying. They're safe because they have starting jobs, but you have a Sam, Mike, and a Will linebacker. Who's the third least paid of those guys? And then anyone that's in a great position battle or, a younger guy, I think those are the areas where money talks more than common sense. But, yeah, I just think that's the world we live in. And what an agent pointed out to me is there's no 2 or 3 year contracts. Everything in college football is a 1-year deal. In the NFL, at least you can lock someone up for 3 years, 4 years, and you can get that stability. But this is just such a weird way to do business where every year we're all free agents again. You got to renegotiate with the whole team. I don't think that's sustainable over time. I think that's going to get real old real fast, and the only people who are going to make out on that are the agents.
Bill, do you think they're going to face that issue with guys on the current roster? You get the feeling that they're gearing up for that, or is it really kind of thing where they just know they have to go back to their people anyway? There's not going to be the group coming back that was last year, just because if you look at the ages of the kids, the 2 most coveted draft prospects on the roster aren't eligible for the draft. So they can't go to the league. They got to come back. Those guys need to be retained. But I'm saying the JT Jack crew, they're all gone. They don't have any time left. Do you see that being an issue, retaining guys, Bill, or do you see key guys from Ohio State headed elsewhere?
I think it's always an issue. You've got to, if you want to retain your top guys, whether it be keeping them out of the portal or whether it be keeping them, I guess you could say, out of the NFL draft, you're going to have to make it financially a thing that they want to do. So yeah, I think it's always an issue. I don't think Jeremiah Smith's leaving, but he has that option if he wants to. He can always jump in the portal. So I think Ohio State is going to do a really good job of keeping the guys they want to keep, is my opinion.
Go ahead, Mark.
One more point is it's been well publicized. This last roster is a 20 million-ish roster. What do we have next? Our donors given us already. Do we know we have another?
Mark, it's glitching hard. How about you, Bill?
Yeah,
All right, I'm going to pull him out of here. StreamYard, by the way, since we started this, I don't know if any of you who were here for us earlier on when we tried 3 times to start the show and there was no sound, which is why you can see the title, Nutters, Can You Hear Us? The third try was called Sounds of Silence, and it was accurate. But I just got a text, actually, that StreamYard's having issues across the board, so it's not us. I finally didn't get blamed for something, which means my family wasn't involved. All right, Bill, where are we on the recruiting cycle? Signing day has passed. 2025 completely done, and 2026 completely in the mix. Where are we? What are guys doing? Switch from transfer portal to recruiting guru, if you could.
Well, I think the way to look at it right now is what's the priorities. Number one priority for this staff is beating Tennessee. There's no question about that. That's where their main work, their main priority, everything, they've got to focus on beating Tennessee. This is going to be a heck of a game. One of the first things we talked about earlier in the show, what's your first thing? I thought, well, this is going to be a heck of a football game was one of the first things, too, that I thought. So that's number one. Number two is the portal, because that is the most pressing thing right now. And then number three is 2026 recruiting. So they kind of go in that order to me. The portal period only goes for a few more weeks here. So they got to handle that first. 2026 recruiting goes for quite a while. So fortunately, you have someone like Mark Pantoni, and he has a heck of a staff working with him to handle the recruiting end of things. And they do a great job of that, lining up options, lining up guys to visit. And speaking of visits, we've talked about Josh Thompson visiting on Friday, the country's #1 offensive lineman for the class of 2026. I talked with him again last night. Jackson Cantwell visits Ohio State on Saturday, then Michigan on Sunday. So there will be some 2026 visitors that make their way to Ohio State in the coming period. And one of the biggest ones, obviously, is Jackson Cantwell on Saturday. So that's kind of the lay of the land of what is on the horizon for Ohio State and their staff right now.
People can see I'm looking down. So I'm trying to get one name here. Anyway, there's names coming up, Bill, of guys. Here's what I wanted to ask you. Guys that they recruited, who they were heavily involved with, that maybe didn't enjoy their first year or are hitting the portal. I'll give you an example. One right here. I remember this name. Defensive end Williams Waneri. I believe Ohio State recruited him. Now he's in the portal. Is that the kind of thing you see them going after? Guys they built relationships with?
Yeah, sometimes, but not necessarily always. I'll give you a good example that somebody that's in the portal now that they didn't really recruit coming out of high school, but they're definitely interested in him now, and that's Purdue's safety, Dylan Thieneman. I think a visit is going to be set up with him. So while you have a good point about guys that have relationships, that's not always the case. They didn't really go after Josh Thompson when he was in high school, but he's a Big Ten guy. It has been a Big Ten guy at Northwestern, so they went after him. So I think it works both ways. They're going to be interested in some guys that they had relationships with, and then they're going to be interested in guys now that can play for them.
One of the guys I wanted to ask about, Justin Scott, one time committed to Ohio State, I believe, flipped to Miami. Now he's in the portal. Do you see him as being a name to rekindle some flame there?
I have not heard anything so far to tell me that that he has been contacted to this point by Ohio State. Now, again, yesterday was just the first day, and there was a lot of guys to be aware of yesterday. We had a bunch of guys on our site yesterday as either having been contacted, will be contacted, could be contacted. But so far, I haven't heard anything about Justin Scott being contacted yet by Ohio State. Will that change? We'll see.
Bill, do you see that as a red flag? I used to be a transfer as a red flag guy. Like when it came to the NFL draft, for example, I didn't want the teams I supported to draft a guy that had already transferred. Now, you can't be like that anymore now that everyone has transferred everywhere all the time. But do you still see an issue with guys transferring after one season? Does that make you leery?
It depends on the kid. I mean, it depends on the reason and the player. There could be a lot of reasons. For instance, you go to a school your first year, and there's a head coach, and that staff is there, and then they're all of a sudden not there. For instance, just somebody that went to Tulsa. Well, when you went there, you had one head coach, and now that head coach is no longer there. So I think there could be various reasons. I think it just depends on the individual player themselves and his situation.
Yeah, and I would agree with that, PB. I've got to lose that mentality because there's just too many transfers. But I was always worried about if a guy couldn't make it at his original school, that it wouldn't work out. All right, we appreciate Bill stopping by. Bill, I'm going to let you go. Thank you, sir. And we appreciated Mark stopping by. Before we leave, I've got to let you know about Factor Meals. You notice how the days are shorter, but your to-do lists aren't? Power through your busy days with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. From breakfast to dinner and anything in between, Factor has easy, nutritious options to keep you fueled and feeling your best. Whether you like routine or you enjoy mixing things up, Factor has you covered with 35 different delicious meals every week and over 60 additional convenience options you can add, such as their awesome smoothies. Don't let shorter days slow you down. Stay energized with America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service. Head to factormeals.com/Bucknuts50 and use code Bucknuts50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month. That's code Bucknuts50 at factormeals.com/Bucknuts50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. If you are still listening right now, you are a real trooper, and we really appreciate you. Again, sorry for the technical difficulty to get started. Dave will be back tomorrow. We'll have these two dudes back on Thursday. Have a good one, Buck Nutters.